If I could, I would play that video again right now because that song was kind of amazing. Card number 142 from the 1953 Bowman Color set. It's Larry Miggins of those St. Louis Cardinals. Here he is again, bat in hand, probably on the dugout steps, about to take a swing or two. Always enjoy looking at these videos and fondly remember putting them all together many years ago now. Larry Miggins was an outfielder, a young power hitter, it says on the back of the card. He got into 42 games for the Cardinals in 1952, had 22 hits, including 2 home runs. And he had been with Houston of the Texas League in 1951, where he hit 27 home runs and batted in 108 runs on a 260 average. So if it is card number 142, it must be session number 142, guys, of Card Room Live. If you're new to Card Room Live and you've got high expectations, lower those expectations, everybody. This is not a show, especially tonight. It is a hangout for fellow vintage collectors, whether we have guests or not. And we've got no guests planned for tonight, although anything could happen. Most of the time we waste time looking at and talking about old cardboard, and through it all we try to make it time well wasted, and we've been doing just that for over 4 years now. If you're here with us live, welcome to you. Welcome to my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to the commenters, the folks from all over social media land, the collectors. And if you're new, don't be afraid to say hello. You're among cardboard friends. This is the live stream where everybody knows your name. We may not know your name yet, but we soon will. If you're listening to this later, however, perhaps you are doing one or more of the following: going to work, coming home from work, sorting cards, looking at eBay, rolling out those meatballs, walking the dog, sitting on the john, putting the kids to bed. Maybe you're battling raccoons in the backyard. It's a long story. Maybe you're wondering if Eddie Wakus will come up in conversation. Rest in peace, Mr. Robert Redford. Maybe you're wondering what other kind of Mike Foolery we're going to get into tonight. Well, I've got advance notice that Mike, the sports history collector, can't make it tonight. So there's going to be a little less Mike Foolery than usual, but I'm sure there'll be some. Whatever you may be doing, I hope you get something out of this next hour. And if you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, you can always email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram, bowman53_Alex. On X 1953 Bowman Color, and on Blue Sky Bowman 53. Although I have to say, Instagram seems to be alive and kicking, but X and Blue Sky, when it comes to card collecting content, is just kind of sad from my perspective. Maybe other people are having a better experience. Anyway, you can find that information located in the description below. This session of Card Room Live is brought to you by the Philadelphia Caramel Company. Caramels and penny specialties, including butterscotch and coconut goods, marshmallows, jellies, fig and orange paste, chocolate-covered goods of all kinds. Really, that's all we care about, right? As long as it's covered in chocolate. All the good stuff your parents don't want you to have. This company is offering, made by the Philadelphia Confections. The caramel tastes great. And hey, the baseball cards that come with them are pretty great too. So good evening to everybody. Happy Sunday night. It's 8 o'clock. It's that time again. And here we are. Let's do a quick check to see who's at the bar. Whether you drink or not, it's all good. The dog, 8 My Card Collector, is here again. Welcome to you. Mike Good is here. Good evening, Mike. Jacob Dahl is here. What's up, Jacob? Another Mike Polina is here. Happy Sunday to you. Melissa is here. Hello, Melissa. The Baseball Time Traveler is here. How are you doing? Ruben Snyder. My mistake. Ruben, hello. Sven is here. Good evening to you. I like your avatar. Litzy Sports Cards is here. Peter B is here. Peacemaker Cards is here. Jayhawker Vintage Cards Mike is here. Mr. Clean Cheap Shots is here. What's up, Drew? Reese Andy Card Ranger is here. Mike is commenting on this card. It is, well, here's the thing about all the cards. They are all incredibly artistic. The photographers of this set didn't just turn their cameras on and snap. They had some intention behind what they did, and it worked. I heard there was a book club meeting tonight. That's right, Nina. We're going to get to that in a second. I'm glad you're here, Nina. Collector's Dream Orlando is here. What's up, Orlando? Mr. Mitchell, White Sox fan card collector, is here. Warren D in the CLE. We were waiting for you, Warren. So I'm glad that you're here and on time. And I'm kind of scrolling through. There he is. I'm doing well, sir. How are you? The Card Story is here. Kelly 3, Kurt is here. And Kurt was one of our guests last Sunday. If you missed that session, I hope you check it out. Kurt and Don from There Is Joy in Mudfield podcast. That was a lot of fun. Mookie Chilson had a wonderful time at the Philly show today. All of the shoving was brotherly. Hey, when in Philly, the Boston Kid is here. Maxa Jackson is here. And we can begin the John Mangini collection. The Mangini collection, John Mangini is here. What's up, John? And Warren is not asleep. Okay. Great. No guests tonight, although we'll see how this goes. I might throw the link in and whoever wants to jump in. For anybody that's relatively new to Card Room Live, you might be surprised. Wait, there's no guests. In fact, Card Room Live in its infancy rarely, well, I guess that's not true. We would have guests, but a lot of times it would just be me and whatever happened. And we're going to do that tonight. I have a couple things I want to talk about. One, I've got a mail day. I'm going to do a mail day. That'll be different. A live mail day with y'all. And really, it's about something I want to talk about that's related to that mail day. We're going to do a conversation about baseball books, which I hope some of you guys are excited to participate in, because I've got some books I want to share, but I'm also here very curious to hear your suggestions for baseball books. We're going to get into that. That's probably going to be the bulk of it. But first, I wanted to mention I'm very excited today. I got to spend some time working on my next video. It's been difficult finding time to work on YouTube, and it's a real luxury. Those of us that have YouTube channels or do baseball related social media stuff, it's sometimes difficult to find the time. I had a little bit of time today to work on it, and I'll just share my screen really quickly. This is the project I'm working on. The next video is going to be about the origins of baseball cards. And I'm going to talk about a number of different early cards, some of which I'm sure many people in here will be familiar with. Others may be ones that you haven't heard about as much. And I'm also going to be talking about, in this video, the Elysian Fields, where I'm sure you all know is sort of considered one of the primal birthplaces of baseball itself. And so I've been thinking about this video for a long time. I've been reading about this stuff and learning a lot in the process, and it's been a lot of fun. I would say I'm probably, I don't know, maybe 75%, 80% of the way there. I thought this video was going to be pretty quick compared to some of the other videos I've done this year. It's not going to be as long, but what I discovered was, which is kind of obvious, and it didn't really dawn on me until I'm in the middle of it, it's really hard to find images of stuff from this time period. I mean, it should be kind of obvious, but it didn't really click with me until I started putting it together. So I've been, piece by piece, step by step, finding stuff and coming up with ideas. And honestly, it's been slow going, but fun. And we, those of us that have YouTube channels, we always say, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And for me, this is fun. It's not necessarily how other people want to make videos, and you certainly don't have to, but I'm enjoying it. And if I wasn't enjoying it, I wouldn't do it. So I guess that's a good sign. So anyway, just wanted to share that that's definitely still something that motivates me, and hopefully, I don't want to put a date on it, but I would hope that, I don't know, sometime in the next couple weeks or so I'd be able to post that. Something else that kind of came up as a result of that video that I wanted to briefly share that I thought was pretty cool is there's an element in the um, there is a sorry, I'm trying to think and do something at the same time. Difficult. There's an element in the video that has to deals with the passage of time and the loss of stadiums. Hopefully it'll make sense when you guys watch the video someday. But one of the things that I did was go back and look through some of the more iconic stadiums that we've lost. Forbes Field, Scheid Park, or Connie Mack Stadium, and obviously Ebbets Field and the Polo Grounds. So as I was looking around, of course, I'm sure many of you guys have seen stuff like this before. Here's the plaque that has been on the Polo Grounds housing complex since whenever that went up, which I guess would have been in the 60s. I'm not really sure. Maybe if somebody wants to quickly look it up exactly when this plaque got added to the building, but I'm guessing in the 60s or maybe the early 70s. And this was just an image that I found online really quickly, and you can see that clearly it's been exposed to the elements for decades and has really just been left there, and I'm sure nobody's really necessarily paying attention to it. And I just grabbed this image and dropped it into what I was going to use for the video that I'm working on. And maybe I want to say maybe a week or two ago, one of the channels I follow on YouTube is the New York Giants Preservation Society. Anybody that's really interested in New York City baseball in that part of baseball history, that's a great channel to follow. They don't always make videos, but they'll sometimes do live streams and have conversations about certain players or certain teams. Again, I'll obviously sort of try to keep the memory alive of the New York Giants. And a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I can't remember, they posted a number of little videos and some posts and some images about the fact that they had gotten permission to go to the Polo Grounds housing complex, take down the plaque about the Polo Grounds, have it professionally cleaned up and restored, and then added back in its proper place. And so here is the finished product, so to speak, of the restoration. And boy, it's like night and day, right? And I think it's fantastic that people are doing things like this. There is something, going back to the way it looked before, there is something kind of pleasing about the weathering of this, but and the time and so on and so forth. But the fact that it needed a nice cleaning and that it has this fresh appearance is, to me, symbolic of like, let's keep this stuff preserved and in place for future generations and people to sort of continue to appreciate and take note of, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. And so actually, as a result, I'm taking the other one out of the video, and I'm going to put this into the video. And it actually got me thinking about what are some of the other plaques and signs and historical markers around the country that maybe need similar treatment. I'm sure in every pocket of the states there's stuff like this that needs to be done, and hopefully there's some folks out there that are trying to do something about it. So before I do my mail day, let me just check and see what's going on in the chat, because when I do these sessions where I'm the only one on camera, I'm not looking at the chat. So let me see what's going on. Working on the treadmill, really? Really, Max. That's intense. I can't imagine that this would be motivation to keep moving on a treadmill. But okay. Jason's here. What's up, Jason? Alex Mail Days, right. Let's see. Getting some Max snark. Steven with the PH is here. Hold those book recommendations, guys. Hold off on those for a second. I mean, obviously you guys can do whatever you want in the chat, but I'm not gonna be able to keep up with book recommendations yet. Blue Collar Cards is here. Good to see you. Yep, I definitely got some Comiskey stuff. Yes. Does anyone else know of the Lost Ballparks podcast? Yeah, that's a great podcast, and they also do a really good job of promoting it on other social media platforms. Oh, cool, great, Mookie. I would think less of you if you were not already subscribed. So I'm glad to hear that. A little time and place notification here from the Boston Kid. In January of 1912, Arizona becomes a state. The Titanic sinks and Fenway Park opens. It's a hell of a year. All right. So I want to do this mail day here, and then we're going to get into books. I've got a card that came in a couple of days ago. I have not opened it. You can see right here. I haven't even sliced it. I have not taken a look. Which maybe makes you guys think like, oh my gosh, what's the card going to be? Again, lower those expectations. I'm excited about this card, and honestly, that's all that really matters, right? If you're the collector and the card means something to you, that's what matters. I mean, obviously, it's nice when other people are excited too, but this is not necessarily about the card, but about something interesting that I realized about this card. Well, it'll make sense here in a second. So I'll go ahead and get this card out of here. Should I do a slow roll? I have not done a mail day video in a long time. Well, these are nice. Look at this. Look at this as like, protectors in the packaging. I'm going to keep those. First time I'm seeing that. Okay, so here's the card. I have to look at it first, guys, before I show it to you. I haven't looked at it yet. Yeah, it looks nice. Man, that's got some nice color to it. What's the card, Alex? What's the card? It's a 1956 Topps Clem Labine. Clem Labine is fine with 9 on the mound. Such a great looking card. And I love, just the environment. That's one of the things I really like about the 56 Topps cards is seeing the player sort of surrounded by the stadium. And, he's got his follow through here. Yeah, so I'm sure most of you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, and you know about my PC, I'm really focused on, New York players from, I guess, the first half of the 20th century, in particular, let's say 40s, 50s, when those 3 teams were there. And so I have to actually give some credit to Card Room Live, because I think it was, I can't remember exactly who it is, but several sessions ago, we had a conversation and somebody showed a Clem Labine card, and we were talking about just how integral he was to the Brooklyn Dodgers for many years. And it really sort of made me think, I gotta add a Clem card to my set. And when I was kind of going through all the options of the different Clem Labine cards, this was the one that jumped out at me. and I wanted to get it. And as it turns out, having already purchased the card, I've been reading this book, The Boards of Summer, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But in this book, Clem comes up quite a bit, so it's kind of perfect timing to be getting this card and to be reading about him in that book. So really happy to see this card now and to share it with you guys. Now here's the reason I wanted to do this. The last card that I bought or that I acquired before this one is this card, Hank Thompson, 1953 Topps. Great card, impactful, important player, has a tragic story. His life ended far too soon, but had some important contributions to the game. Anyway, I got this card in February of this year, and I just got this card. So what is that, guys? That's 7 months. 7 months between card purchases. And I just thought that was interesting, and I thought I would share that with you guys and just sort of think out loud about that. Why did I not acquire a card in 7 months? I can tell you, first of all, it wasn't intentional. I wasn't purposefully aware of it or thinking about it. I wasn't I can't get a card. I don't want to get a card. It just happened. So then, I thought, well, what exactly is the reason? And I'm sure some of you guys might be wondering, what's the reason? I just thought, you know what, I'm going to be a little transparent here, and I'm going to talk about this with you guys. Was it financial? Was it a financial decision? Was I in some sort of situation where, I had to be more mindful of hobby spending? Honestly, no. It was nothing of that nature, although I will say that that's a perfectly valid and good reason not to buy baseball cards, is if you do have more important things going on in your life that need to be taken care of, whether they're immediate things or long-term things or emergencies or whatever else. And I'm sure you all would agree with that all of that stuff comes first. But it wasn't anything like that. Had I been scared away from pricing? Because, if there's one thing that we know from hobby news and from sort of watching stuff, and even if you're not paying attention to hobby news and you're just going on eBay or going to shows, you can be quickly aware of the fact that prices have, in some cases, gone up, or they have not come down, or they can certainly make you hesitate to get cards that you might otherwise have gotten. And I know a lot of people have expressed frustration when it comes to prices in the hobby and sort of feeling priced out of the hobby. I know I sometimes feel that way when it comes to certain cards that I would like to get. Getting a Clem Labine card doesn't require a ton of foresight for me necessarily, although it might. But another card, whether it's a Mantle or Hank Aaron, or a bigger card, let's say, quote unquote, certainly would make me think twice. But I wasn't scared away from pricing. And the way that I collect is there are big boy cards, right, that I certainly have on my list and that I would like to get, and that I sometimes get from time to time. But I'm also very happy to get a Hank Thompson or a Clem Labine and add those, because those fit my PC too. And although I care about my cards, I'm investing in, it's funny because I think Aaron and Jason just talked about this in their live stream earlier. I care about the value of my cards, but I'm not selling cards. I don't think I've ever sold a card, honestly. And I'm certainly not trying to flip cards. I'm a collector. And if I get a card, I keep that card. I mean, I don't even really upgrade cards. So it wasn't that. So why else did I have hobby burnout? Honestly, no, I didn't. Um, in fact, I would say over the past 7 months, really the past year, I've had the most fun in some ways that I've had when it comes to the hobby that I've had in all the years that I've been doing this. I've made 3 or 4 videos that I'm really proud of that I enjoyed making. Card Room Live has, been something that I've really enjoyed doing. And at no point was I ever over it or needing a break. And again, there's nothing wrong with hobby, with like needing a break or wanting to step away from it or, you know, um, taking a pause. There's totally nothing wrong with that, but that's not how I was feeling. So what's the reason? I don't really have one. that's the anticlimactic resolution I have for you guys. There was no reason for me to not get a card for those 7 months, but I guess the reason I'm sharing it with you guys is that one thing that I really like looking back over this past year. There's things like I didn't get to go to the National, for example, and I didn't go to Strongsville, and those are two things I really wish could have happened, but they didn't. And I'm sure that if I had gone to Strongsville or National, I probably would have picked something up, right? But those things just didn't happen. But anyway, I guess what I kind of realized when I was thinking about this the past couple of days was that you don't have to get a card to appreciate this hobby. For what it's worth, for anybody that might need to hear that, I do feel like we may, and I'm including myself in this. Like, there's this feeling that like you're only really enjoying the hobby if you're getting something. And don't get me wrong, there's a great feeling that comes along with getting something. I mean, I'm looking at this card and there's something about the green and the blue of a Dodger card, Brooklyn Dodger card in particular, that like gets the juices flowing for me. So I'm like really excited to get this card. But that being said, you can still enjoy the hobby, even if you don't have something coming in the mail. And so if anybody finds themselves in that predicament, whether it's like me, there's no reason at all, or maybe it's a financial thing, or maybe it's hobby burnout, or maybe it's whatever the other reasons might be, I think you can still find ways to enjoy this hobby for what it's worth. And that's why I think, especially for those of you that are YouTubers, you don't have to have a new card to make a video. You don't. In fact, again, some of the videos that I'm most proud of were made about cards that I already had. They were not mail days. They were not new cards. They were cards that I've had in my collection for a while. And so I think I'm sure I'm not saying anything that you guys don't already know, but I think it's worth hearing from time to time that it's good to sort of stop and appreciate what you've already got. So I'm going to quickly go back and look through some of the comments here, and then let's get into some books, because that's what we're here for, right? Quickly looking through Mitchell. Yes, absolutely. And it absolutely is part of my New York collection, Mike. Karnak the Magnificent does not need to open that. Well, I knew what was inside, Mookie, but I should have had my little turban on, right? Yeah, exactly, Jason. So much going on in the background. You're totally right. I should have held it up to my head. It's true. I mean, apparently I don't. Family and bills come first. Amen. It's all good. Phillies baseball cards, story, legend, and lore is here. Pastor Craig is here. Yeah, what bubble? I'm so out of touch, Mookie. You'll have to catch me up. That's right. I'm not taking any offers on it. No, but you can watch it later. You can watch it later, Scott. Mr. B Roth 6 is here. What's up? I wanted to play the music again anyway. That's true. There's so many times where I just want to like play the video 2 or 3 times at the beginning. Big Six. I've taken a hiatus from the hobby a few times, absolutely, and there's no trouble with that at all. Boston Kid, a great place to start if you're not acquiring cards is to understand the history of the cards. A great place to start with that is the King Kelly era and the Boston Braves specifically. Yeah, I mean, and I forgot to mention that. I've been doing a lot of reading, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, is just enjoying books because it makes the card collecting even more impactful in my opinion. Nina, I appreciate this. I really value hearing your take on collecting. It keeps me away from fear of missing out, right? And that's a real thing, especially in the social media land. And yeah, it's not worth it. So in that spirit, let's talk about some books. I'm going to share a couple of books, and then I would like to hear from you guys. I got an email from our friend Nina, and I'm glad Nina's here tonight with us. Nina's a fantastic collector, a YouTuber, and she sent me an email. And Nina, I'm sure you don't mind me sharing this because you're here and you knew that I was going to do this. Nina sent me an email, and she said she's having a hard time finding baseball history books that she enjoys reading. Most of the ones that she's tried read too much like a history textbook from high school. And I totally know what you're talking about. So she asked for some recommendations for books, for baseball related books, history related baseball books that don't necessarily feel like you're reading a textbook for a class. And Nina, thank you for reminding me about the Doris Kearns Goodwin book, Wait Till Next Year. It's a great book about the Brooklyn Dodgers, but it's really about the fandom. So it's coming at it from a different perspective. So I pulled a few books, but I'm curious to hear from you guys in the chat. What are some books that you would recommend that you enjoyed? And that you would recommend to other folks, and you can give like a quick little personal review or recommendation or take on the book. I'm just going to share a couple, and then I'll keep my eye on the chat. The first one I already kind of talked about, The Boys of Summer, Roger Kahn. This is a book that I've had for a while, but I only started reading it recently, like in the past few weeks. And so far it's great. I'm like literally halfway through the book as it stands. And it's interesting because I would say the first few chapters are really about Roger Kahn's life and how it relates to the Brooklyn Dodgers, growing up in Brooklyn, and his relationship with his family and his parents, and his relationship with his father, who was also a Brooklyn fan. And also it's really about him becoming the sports writer that would eventually write about the Brooklyn Dodgers, and just his relationship with his parents and that sort of thing. And that part is certainly worthwhile and interesting. But of course, you really start to get engaged when he actually becomes a sports writer, and you start to hear about like him following the team and writing about Jackie Robinson and writing about that incredibly important time period where he's front and center to all of the race relations and things going on, not just between the Robinson and other teams, but also within the players of the Dodgers themselves. And that's also interesting. But it gets even better when you get into the middle of the book, which is where I am now, because what he does is he starts visiting key players later in life, after they're no longer playing baseball and they've retired and have moved on into different parts of their lives. And so far, he met with, in terms of where I am in the book, he met with this guy. And Clem Labine was running a sports attire company and just living his life. And right now, I just finished a chapter where he spent some time with George Shotgun Shuba, and boy, George Shotgun Shuba is such an interesting guy. There's this great part of the story where they go down into George's basement, and he's showing him whatever memorabilia he still has. He has some Dodger, uniforms and a couple bats, and they actually like talk about how he would practice his swing, and he actually gets Roger Kahn to do the same training that he would do when he would practice his swing, because of course Shuba was a great hitter. Anyway, this is a great book, because yes, it's about baseball, and yes, you get a sense of what was going on at that time, but it's a really human story, and you get to see the character, the players in a light that you're maybe not used to. And so what I'm finding is it's really invigorating the collection that I'm already doing. Like getting that Clem Labine card means even more than it did before reading this book. Okay, so let me see what you guys have thrown in here. Mr. Ranger Studios, currently enjoying Skipper by the late Scott Miller. Fascinating read about baseball managers. Cool. Scott, I don't know the book. Does it sort of like have a narrow focus in terms of which eras it's looking at, or is it pretty broad, or where does it sit in regards to the kinds of managers or eras it's talking about? Dave Jameson's book, Mint Condition. Can you briefly describe that book? I could go look it up, but I'm too lazy. 2 recommendations for Mint Condition. It's a good book on cards. Okay. Mike Polina, A Surprise to No One, The Athletics of Philadelphia by David Jordan is a great read. It starts at the very beginning of the A's, which is an actually wonderful history of the game, of course, because the A's are super important to that whole origin story. That's cool. I'll have to come back to this after the live stream and write some of these down for myself. Doug ate my card collector. I just read A Strong Right Arm, all about Mammy Peanut Johnson. It's a short book that Mammy wrote with assistance. I found it after going down a rabbit hole that started with a card. Okay, that's always a great way to find a book. Deepire is currently reading Walter Johnson, Baseball's Big Train by Henry Thomas. Really enjoying finding out more about Johnson. Cool. Okay, so this is about the strong right arm, written for younger people, but not much else out there talking about her. Okay. Mookie, I keep threatening to read Bernard Malamud's novel, The Natural, which is the basis for the movie. Has anyone here read the book? It's funny because literally like 10 minutes before starting the live stream, Mookie, because The Natural has been on my mind this week with Robert Redford passing away, I went on Amazon and eBay and was like looking at books threatening like you are to read it too. So I would also love to hear if anybody's actually read that book and has any thoughts about it. Melissa says Roger Kahn also wrote a book called Good Enough to Dream. It's the story of the Utica Blue Sox team that won the New York Penn League championship as an independent club, my hometown. Oh, very cool. Well, that has some like personal resonance. James, hello, James, says Lou Gehrig, The Lost Memoir. Yeah, I've heard about that book and I have it bookmarked. I also, since we're talking about it, I'll just briefly mention this book. I finished this book a few months ago, The Luckiest Man, The Life and Death of Lou Gehrig by Jonathan Eig, or Eig, I should say. This was great. I didn't realize how little I knew about Lou Gehrig until I read this book, and it's his whole life, but written in a very, I don't know. The book had momentum. It was entertaining is the wrong word, but it was like it was engaging. It kept moving, and I wanted to stay with it. And I always, of course, I think we all have respect for Lou Gehrig, right? But I understood him better and respected him even more after finishing that book. So Reindeer also needs to read that book because he tried and failed. It's okay. We all have our shortcomings. Kurt, The Final Season, and Ty and the Babe. I have Ty and the Babe. I have not read it. It's sitting over here in my baseball book collection. That's cool. JW's Dugout. What's up, JW? A Soul of Baseball by Joe Poznansky, who I know has written a lot of books, and Our Team by Luke Eplin. Yeah, I have Our Team, and I know a number of the Cleveland folks in this chat also have read that book and have that book. Okay, Killebrew, Kurt Campy, which I think you actually showed last Sunday about Roy Campanella. Rob Baseball Time Traveler, also The Lost Memoir. Cool. I'll have to check that book out. Mike says the last three books, Black and Blue, 66 Orioles, Our Team, which we just talked about the Cleveland Indians, and To Hell and Back, Audie Murphy. Okay. And that's also a movie. It's funny because I remember being a kid. It's kind of random, being a kid and watching To Hell and Back on TV, probably like Turner Classic Movies or something. And that's how I learned about Audie Murphy. But I have not read the book. Scott says Skipper goes briefly into the golden age managers, but then talks a lot about 70s and 80s managers, and then really focuses on how managers are still super important in today's world of analytics, right? Yeah, that's got me thinking about a lot of. Yeah, I totally agree that managers are still super important, and that the Phillies are kind of dealing with something right now that kind of shows how important the managers are. Cuban Star, which is a bio on Alex Pompez and the New York Cubans. Yes, I have that book. That's a great book. He's a really fascinating character, and was a really kind of fascinating New York City character too, and just in terms of the time period when all of that happened. Yeah, that's a great book. Peter, The History of the Montreal Expos, Up and Away, The Kid. Boy, there's a whole lot of books in here. Eddie Waitkus, the player The Natural was based on. He was born in Boston for Bronze Stars in World War II. Two-time All-Star. There's your Eddie Waitkus mentioned for the night, everybody. No, it has nothing to do with the 3-hour tour. I'm willing to, even though I haven't read the book, Mook, I'm pretty certain of that. Book reviews should be a live stream on a regular basis. Yeah, well, it's sort of spontaneously happened from time to time on Cardroom Live anyway, but I'll certainly make a note of it to try to do it more often, because there's a ton of books out there, right? And there's always new ones. Once a Bum, Always a Dodger, Don Drysdale. Cool. Baseball's Leading Lady, Effa Manley, and the Rise and Fall of the Negro Leagues. Great for kids. Okay, that's great. I always like seeing how people are trying to get kids to discover this history. A couple other books that I pulled aside. Let me try to vary this up a little bit. I've talked about this book before. I have a whole stack here, Nina. I've talked about this book before. I'll mention it again briefly. The Old Ball Game, how John McGraw, Christy Mathewson, and the New York Giants created modern baseball. I mean, that's a great title, and to me, the book didn't disappoint. And by the way, it's Frank Defert. If anybody's looking this book up, I really enjoyed this because I'm very interested in this part of the history, and of course, Mathewson and McGraw, two incredibly important and fascinating characters, and there's just a lot about their dynamic and their personal lives, and their friendship and strategy that I appreciated in that book. Let's see what else. This book is a book that I've been using and reading a lot lately because it's relevant to the video that I've been working on. How Baseball Happened, The True Story Revealed by Thomas Gilbert. Now, I will say, to be honest with you, Nina, in terms of not feeling like you're reading a textbook, there will be times in this book where you will feel like you might be reading a textbook because it is about how baseball started, as the title suggests. But I definitely found it engaging and interesting, and just sort of because he had to do a lot of, as anybody writing books about this period in baseball has to do. There's a lot of kind of detective work that you got to do to kind of figure stuff out because there's not a lot of records and there's not a lot of, immediately obvious sources and stuff. And so I kind of found that fascinating, how he was able to kind of piece things together and figure things out. It's not exactly a page turner necessarily, but if you're at all curious about this period of time, this was the book that I really enjoyed going through. Yeah. I have that book right here. This would be what I would call more of a coffee table book, but it is great. Game Faces, Early Baseball Cards from the Library of Congress. This is a very visually appealing book that makes a lot of connections between cards and what was going on in American history, and just about any early pre-war card that you can think of is going to be in here. At least there'll be a representation. I actually, when this book first came out, if you go way, way back into my channel, you'll find a book review about this book that I did when I first got it. There's a really great section in here where they show at least a handful of original photographs with the card equivalent. Well, here's some T205s, for example, with the photographs that the cards were based on. So this is a great book, and this is actually I kind of consider this paired with another book, which was also from the Library of Congress. They did a exhibit called Baseball Americana, and this is the book that was released in tandem with that exhibit. And this is not just about cards, of course. This is just about all the different memorabilia that's in the Library of Congress that they had on display. And I actually got to go to this exhibit, and here's my original pamphlet from having gone. This was a great day. This was I went to DC. I happened to be in DC at the time. Gosh, in 2018. I mean, that's crazy how long ago that was. And I actually met Andrew Nuffset Cards for the first time in person at the exhibit. We met up there together and walked through it together, which was awesome. And so this is kind of a nice keepsake from having gone to the exhibit. But even if you haven't gone to it or didn't know about it, there's just really great stuff in here. Obviously, it's about the history of baseball in the States, but there's also lots of really fun memorabilia and like ephemera in here. For example, they've got like all these music sheets, I guess, of like popular songs from the time period about that are baseball related. Here's some more. They've got Jolton Joe's song in here. So kind of cool. There's stuff in here that might actually get the mind clicking in terms of other memorabilia that might go along with your collection. Here's some more. So anyway, sometimes those books are great too, not necessarily for reading, but just for flipping through. Let's see. Boston Kid, most of the collectors I've met are historians as well as collectors, and they love books and learning the story behind a card. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's often the case here amongst collectors on social media is, the card itself is awesome, but like understanding the player, understanding the history, understanding the context really elevates your appreciation for it, for sure. Kurt, Rhubarb and the Catbird Seat by Red Barber and Robert Kramer, right? For sure. Red Barber being a huge part of baseball and the thing that connected people to baseball in the end, for a lot of folks at that time. So Nina, I mean, I don't know how helpful that was, but maybe what you've done is spurred on an idea that we should do this more often, maybe like once a month or something. Some books that people want to recommend. So I will say that if anybody really feels like they have a lot of books that they would like to recommend and that maybe they want to talk about, reach out to me, let me know, send me an email or text me or whatever, and perhaps we can figure out a time to have you on and talk about books, because I feel like it definitely is something that a lot of people are interested in and would be a lot of fun. Glad to hear it, Nina. Yeah. Well, guys, we are nearly out of time. So I really, truly hope that you enjoyed this live stream about nothing. And it really nearly was about nothing tonight, but it was always, as always, it was always about something, right? And appreciate y'all being here. Card Room Live wouldn't be the same without you guys. So give it a thumbs up if you're still here. If you're not still here, that's okay. You're not listening to this. If you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, you can always email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. And please don't hesitate to do it. And of course, that information, along with other social media information, can be found in the description below. So until the next 7 months, when I might get another card. Actually, no, I haven't. I forgot to mention this. There's another card already in the mail. So I I guess I'm back on the horse, right? Even though I didn't really feel like I was ever off. Until next Sunday night, guys, take care of yourselves out there in Hobbyland, and we'll see you next Sunday. Have a great week, everybody. End stream. And